Alright, this next video is from the Tiger Lily. Her question is, how does the vampire community feel about the Twilight franchise? And I was talking to her today, and this question came right out of left field. I talked to her the night before, um, of which she had been pleasantly partying, with a light buzz, with a light buzz. Um, And she was like, well, I'm gonna try and get some sleep soon, but what's been going on? I'm like, well, I've been awake for like the past 24 hours dealing with some VC issues. And I was wondering if I was gonna have to push back our appointment. And I was like, no, I think it'll be okay if I could just get home and deal with what's been going on. And then she comes to me out of nowhere and says, how does other vampires feel about Twilight? And I was like, you're so cute. I love her. Um, how does the VC feel about Twilight? We hate it. We hate it all. We feel like it has given people more fuel to make jokes about vampirism. And that's the nicest way of putting it. Uh, we even make jokes about Twilight. I'm sure you guys have seen like Edward Cullen and Blade memes. Um, Buffy and Edward Cullen memes. All the flavor of memes. David from the Lost Boys memes. I'm sure Alucard memes. I'm sure you guys have seen it all. Um, how can I say this? Even in traveling, no matter where I'm traveling to, whether it's from state to state, whether it's in the U.S., greater U.S., or if it's even outside the U.S., in Europe or Canada, I make sure to just delabel myself as an American, and I mask myself as someone who is possibly could not be recognized as an American. How do I do this? I wear non-labeled clothes. I keep my mouth shut. And when I open my mouth, I speak as eloquently as possible. And it is very rare that people ask me at that point where I am from. And when I have to tell them Northwest Washington, they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And that's when I know I have been caught and it's too late. I have gotten comments like, do you sparkle? Do you need some sunscreen? Is your best friend a werewolf? Do you talk to Alice? Do you have her on speed dial? Are you a vegetarian? And usually, when people ask me these questions, they have no knowledge of the VC at all. So I can say, like I'm 85% vegetarian. And they're like, no wonder you're from Seattle. And I'm like, I'm also vegan. So as vegan as possible. And a lot of people don't really think about it. They don't make the connection at all. But then of course there are some friends of mine that are like, you're 85% vegan? Are you friggin' kidding me? And of course they're like, vegan vampire, are you friggin' kidding me? And I'm like, no, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. I am dairy free, I am gluten free, I eat as little animal protein, animal products as possible. And they're dying at this point. They are howling with laughter. And I'm just over here like, are you having a good time? I hope you're having a good time. And they're like, so, okay. They're like, just back up the truck for a minute. What does this 85% mean? And I'm like, I'm glad you asked. And they're like, oh shit. And I'm like, yeah, that's why it's not at 100. That's why. And all of a sudden the laughter stops. And they're just like, holy crap. And so usually if they're close friends, they get to make their jokes and then it gets serious really quickly. Or if it's people I don't know, then there's kind of walk off and I'm just like, I need amaretto in my coffee right now. I did ask other public figures of the VC um, if anybody ever laughed at them or what sort of stupid shit had people said to them. And I asked JP Veneer, and he really didn't have an answer for me, or at least I can't remember it. Maven said that people laughed, men in particular, and I was shocked to hear that. And I was like, people laughed at you? And I'm like, what could they be laughing at? And he's like, well, I'm surrounded by beautiful women. And I'm like, and that's cause for laughter? I'm like, you could beat the crud out of someone. And he's like, no, I'm really a nice, peaceful, gentle person. And I'm like, well, good for you, hon. But some of us are angry for you. And I couldn't believe it. He said, yeah, apparently, I mean, the only thing I can take away from that is that people are intimidated. So they make some sort of remark and laugh it off. I mean, guy is probably living in hog heaven surrounded by all these beautiful women. I mean, how many women do you know get to sit in your chair and when you say, can you please open your mouth? They just do that. I mean, for being a Fang Smith, I mean, life, in that sort of instance must be pretty awesome. I wonder, like, does he have an opinion about everyone's dental hygiene? Should I be worried? I've only had, like, one root canal in, like, my entire life. I apparently have really strong bones. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Anyway, I have never heard anyone in the community that was like, hey, I like Twilight. That's never happened. I've never heard that. They're probably keeping it to themselves if that's their opinion. Every once in a while, my mom will have one on, and I'm just dying. I mean, there's like music video music and music video screenshots in that movie. It's total fangirl, tooth rotting fluff. It's hilarious. I think I picked up my first book when I was still in college in 2006, and I didn't read it for several months. I graduated high school in 2006, and then June, July, August, I was already taking running start classes in college. So I must have waited at least 5 months before cracking that book, and I didn't actually know what it was about at all. I just cracked it and was like, this place sounds awfully familiar. This place sounds like here. And I'm like, oh crud, it is here. It's like 5 hours away from where I live. Oh snap. And when I thought about that and I was starting to read this, I was like, okay, whose fault is this? Who screwed with Stephanie Meyer? Come forward. Your punishment will be quick and then we can fix this. And I mean, back then I was still very young and I was still in in the coffin incognito mode. So I know it wasn't, of course, my fault. But I was starting to look around at people that I knew were in my vicinity and going, all right, who's responsible for this ridiculousness? Who did this? And when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, this has got to be a Vamp. She said that she had some sort of funky dream. I'm like, somebody be dreamwalking into Stephanie Meyer's brain. Who did this? Answer for your crimes against the VC. But that's really all I can think about when it comes to mind about how I would say that the general public feels. I'm sure that there are some that are really ornery about it, that they're like, oh, I hate that crap. And then some people I'm sure are like, it was okay. I mean, I knew friends of mine that wanted me to see it with them once or twice and that had emotionally stirring moments at the ends of credits. We're no longer friends anymore. I mostly just put up with those people. They get me out of the house. Is that a good thing? Should I say that? Um, yeah, no, I had friends that were dating people and were having, relationship issues, and seeing a movie about any kind of relationship really stirred the pot for them. Uh, I always feel like I'm just kind of standing here and observing history pass me by. Um, you know, didn't like it, didn't love it. Yes, I read all the books. I've seen all the movies. I think that actually comes under, like, when I think about it, when I come and think about fiction, folklore, and the VC, I feel like you have to know all three because people do talk about it. Tourists, right now we're having a lot of tourist action in the VC due to the upcoming holiday. Is that they bring a lot of fiction to the table. They bring a lot of regurgitated Hollywood silver screen type information, movies, books, anime, even music. They bring a lot of that to the table, and it's very difficult to decipher any of that if you haven't been exposed to what they're talking about. You kind of have to be like, they've said a word here I don't understand, and just copy, paste, put that into Google and see what comes up. And you're like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that. Um, just today, I had someone come into the RVCQA info chat, and Happy Cakes was like, what is this girl talking about? And I'm like, she's talking about the Dark Gift. She's talking about Anne Rice. It's okay. Like, you can just continue. Continue. And she was like, I'm gonna remove her. And I'm like, that's fine. Um, and she's just like, God, how many books have you read? And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know anymore. Um, I can't say that I remember reading the last Twilight book. I may not have done that, now that I think about it. I know people who have, and I've been in the presence of them reading. So I'm not sure if that counts. Anyway, I think that this fully concludes the question of how does the VC feel about Twilight. You have a good night.